Hello, Kako. Welcome to another Mo'olelo Monday. We're currently located at the Fairmont Waterfront Hotel. As you can see, we got the sunrise going on in the background here. This is up in Vancouver, Canada. And so I guess you can watch the sunrise come up as we do our next Mo'olelo Monday. Yeah, it's gorgeous. I got my phone on the side over here, taking a time lapse as the sun is coming up. Got some of my family still asleep. Just gonna be trying to keep my tone down a bit. Some of the footage from the beginning of this video comes from yesterday when we were traveling around town and we made our way up to Stanley Park, Vancouver Aquarium. And so one of the things we wanted to check out was the otters. I usually watch the live feed. You can actually see the live feed on YouTube. If you type in Vancouver otters, you can see them swimming around inside their little playpen. But it's a lot different to see them, in real life. My family was surprised at how big the otters are. So today's Mo'olelo, wanted to discuss expectations versus reality, and how your perception forms a certain kind of expectation, right? So you're expecting one thing, and then you experience another thing that's totally out of what you were originally intending. And I mean, depending on how receptive you are to it, right? It's either going to upset you or maybe even shock you or blow your mind. So that's kind of something that we experienced yesterday. Well, my family anyway experienced, because I already knew that the otters got to a nice big size, like a human size. As we watch them on TV and see them in photographs and see them live, the otters look like small, like little kittens. But when you get up close to them, it's like they're massive, right? So my family is expecting these small little teddy bears in the ocean, just kind of floating around, but that was their expectation. But when they saw it, the reality was they were huge, and it kind of made them kind of shocked them a bit. Pretty much anything that happens in your life, right? I mean, you can frame it in a way that it is negative or it is positive. And if you keep that whole mindset of your glass is half full rather than empty, you kind of end up enjoying your life a bit more when you don't really, these it's like sweat the small stuff. These sayings are just, to me, they really hold a lot of value. These sayings that what do you call them, idioms or whatever. You don't realize how true they really are until you finally understand exactly what they mean. Yeah. I remember riding the car with my brother one day, and I seen him getting emotional. He picked me up from school, high school, and as we're driving along in the car, he was getting emotional listening to the radio, and I was kind of like worried. I was like, "Oh, you okay?" and everything, and he's like, well. He tells me, "I think you'll understand, once you become a father, how the lyrics in this music, why it's affecting me this way." And he kind of just let me know. It's like, because he's experiencing something new in his life, he sees things in a new way, right? Which is beautiful. To me, it's beautiful. I mean, When you start to grow, when you start to mature, when you start to, well, emotionally anyway, I'm not necessarily talking about like just aging, because to me, aging is good. It provides you some wisdom if you are constantly trying to improve or do stuff. You're going to school and you're learning. But when it comes to like emotional maturity, some people can stay their entire life, all the way to the day they die, being completely emotionally immature, right? The nanny nanny boo boo, real childish, selfish, centralized in them on how they feel because something's making them uncomfortable or something's yeah, and it's like all perspective too, right? What exactly makes you uncomfortable? The traumas in life and whatnot. Trauma is trauma, right? And just because you can handle a blast to the face, or you can handle somebody constantly ripping you every single day, or because you can handle walking to and from school to the bus stop, or even just walking to school all the way every day of your existence until you graduate, it doesn't mean that everyone can do what you can do. And so I know a lot of you guys know this, right? But honoring it is something different, right? Tolerance. That's how we get people with that hate others or that can't stand others. Because I noticed during my time, my aging, I've noticed that there's certain people who have zero tolerance, waiting for others to do something as fast as they can do it, even though they've been doing it for decades, and somebody just jumps into it. It's sad to see that these people like get down on them because they expect them to move faster like they're moving, even though they're just picking it up and this other person's been doing it for decades. They expect them to be moving at their speed, at their rate. And it's just impossible. It's impossible unless the person is like a prodigy or some kind of savant, right? They're not going to pick it up like immediately. And even if they do pick it up immediately, people should be grateful at the fact that they can catch on as quickly as they do. And then getting back to the fact that the person who took decades to learn it, they get pissed off too because the person who just jumped into it for 10 minutes is doing faster than they are, or they were at their experience growing in their field. So the last time we came to Canada, to Vancouver, we went to, my wife wanted to do something special, so she booked us she wanted to do something special for me. So she booked us a ghost tour, and it was out of Gastown, which is, I believe it's south from here, south. Anyway, she books us this tour to go to check out the ghosts of Vancouver. And I was excited. Because she told me about it before, like right when we got to our hotel, and she's like, oh yeah, we're gonna go do a walking tour in Gastown. And I was like, wow, it's gonna be awesome. And when we got there, I didn't realize that it was going to be more of a historical tour. And the ghost in the ghost tour ended up being the tour guide. So the tour guide took on a persona as an actor, took on a persona of a person that was alive during the 1800s, like a true figure from the 1800s, and she did the whole act. She had the old accent. She was talking the old-timey, old-style way. When we first started, I kind of looked at my wife. I kind of looked at Kiara, and I was like, "Oh, this is different." Because I'm expecting to go from one place to point A to point B, hearing about different haunted locations and experiences people have had out of these buildings or out of these streets, these alleys. But instead I get, this lady who's just basically giving us the history um, of Gastown, how it got its name, buildings that surround the area, and all that stuff. So it kind of disappointed me at first, like, because of my expectations, right? I wanted to hear these ghost stories, and unfortunately, she didn't have any ghost stories at all to tell. She had zero, zero ghost stories. But she did such a great job. Like her attire and her accent and just the way she was in her behavior, her mannerisms. She did a really good job. She was a great actress at portraying that person from that time. See, if I were emotionally immature, I would have been complaining and grumbling and what's like on, to the point where Kiara probably would have said, you know what, enough, Fred, let's just go already. If you're not having a good time, let's just leave. But because, as your perspective changes due to whatever you're doing, or because you're just the kind of person who's just like, okay, with handling things that are not what you're expecting, then that's what I chose to do. I chose to just kind of like, okay, like, we paid for it. First of all, we paid for the tour. It doesn't look terrible. We still get to learn about the history of the area, which is really neat to me. Still very neat to me. So it was cool. It was very, very cool. So yeah, like I was saying, the gal did a fantastic job. 5 stars. But it was to this particular point in our tour, because we had started in Gastown, but then we worked our way up this hill. And she wanted us to start us off at a particular place, even though we met outside a gelato shop in Gastown. She wanted us to actually start from above on the top of the hill, and then work our way down to the ocean. So we walked up the hill, made a corner, and then started to come back down. But the street that she decided to bring us back down on, as we're walking down, she's going on and on and on about the different, about the location and how, she's building this picture in her mind of how it was back in the late 1700s, early 1800s. We're going down this hill and walking past this building, and I looked down this hallway. It's really, deep set hallway with this door that's illuminated by these orange incandescent lamps. And it kind of gives me like the shivers, like something's watching me from inside there. And we must have been walking around with about 20 different patrons. So it was a pretty big group. But I'm looking down that hallway inside this building, right? Going in, and I just kind of like get the chills. And I catch up really quick to the group, and my family's kind of dispersed. I got my wife and my younger daughter walking side by side to the left of the group, and then I'm on the right side of the group with my older girl. And as we're going down the street, after passing that strange walkway, my chest starts to close up. And it's starting to get really, really tight. My chest is starting to burn. And it's really, really tight. I'm like, oh, well, that's not good. So in my head, I'm thinking, well, we had just come up a hill. No problem, We had walked up the hill. I didn't have any breathing issues or anything like that as we went up the hill. And then we walked down the street to a block over, and then we came back down. And we were already on our descent, so it's not like it was difficult to walk. At that moment, it wasn't difficult. But, I started getting tightness in my chest, and then it was starting to get really hard for me to breathe. And because of that, I guess, my heart rate started picking up, because I was like, oh, this is weird. It kind of reminded me of back when I used to get I used to have asthma as a child, so it kind of reminded me kind of like that. But it was really strange the way it came on because it was very subtle. Started off, just like something squeezing my chest, and all of a sudden it just became something very, very, very concerning. Kind of helicopter taking off in the helipad. Anyway, then the strange thing was it felt like somebody was taking their thumb and placing it right into the neck area, the esophageal area, and started to push into right between the bones are here. Started pushing into my throat. So now I started getting really concerned. So I tell my daughter, I ask her, I says, where's your mom? And she looks at me, she says, hey, are you okay? I said, where's your mom? Oh, and then she spots her mom in the crowd. So she goes, oh, okay. And she runs over to Kiara and tells her that I'm not doing well. And so they make their way over to me, as because I'm in the back of the line, the back of the crowd. She makes her way over, and Kiara's asking me. I say, hey, are you okay? And I says, I'm having a hard time breathing. And she's like, oh my gosh. And she says, well, what is it? Was it from the walk, going up the hill? I said, no, because coming up the hill was fine. No problems. So something feels like, like I'm having asthma or something. Something is squeezing my chest. And something's pushing into my throat. I feel like I'm being choked. And she's like, oh my gosh. So we're walking down this hill, going towards this traffic light, crossing the street. And as I'm walking down, I tell her, I says, you know what? This kind of feels like spiritual. It kind of feels like not a physical thing. It feels more like something is interacting with me spiritually. And so she's like, really? So I'm like, possibly. And so the couple of stories that the lady was telling was just, of course, like the history of the area. She wasn't telling us ghost stories. And so because of that, I was kind of like nervous to ask the ghost tour guide, questions about that kind of thing on our tour. But I'm sure, knowing that she's doing a ghost tour, that she'll get people coming up to her. Are there actual ghosts on this tour? And she'll be like, what do you know what I mean? Because she was doing an act, and it just kind of felt like at that time it felt like she was inaccessible as a person who knows the histories and who actually knows the ghost stories. She seemed inaccessible because here's this person who lives back in the day, talking to us. So as we were approaching the street, I was gonna walk over to her and just kind of like on the side, kind of walk over to her and ask her, I'm just wondering if there actual something paranormal about this lane, because I was experiencing something like I do on ghost hunts and stuff like that, where actually I have some kind of physical malady due to the fact that something spiritual is communicating. So before I can get to her, when the traffic light, the traffic light is red, so I figured we have a moment to talk, and she can drop the whole facade about being a gal from the old timey days. I figured she could, give me the lowdown of like true history of the spirit, the ghost parts. Anyway, we get to the light, and the darn thing turns green. Now, for those of you that saw my Almakua video, you guys already know how I feel like just traffic lights, right? It's like the traffic lights will always stop me. Slow down, slow down, slow down. But then this time I was like, well, no, we're going to keep going. And I took it as a sign. So I was like, you know what? Light turned green. It's fine. We're all crossing the street. There's a huge group. I don't want to make a big to-do. So I told my wife, I was like, it's right. I mean, it's not meant to be. To ask her about it right now. Maybe after the next stop, after she does her little spiel, maybe I'll walk over to her and I'll ask her questions. But for now, I'm just going to keep it to myself. Anyway, As we're crossing the street, I'm like, oh, maybe I should take, a reference photo, just a picture of the building so that she knows exactly where I'm talking about during our tour, because I don't know where we're going to end up, where we're going to be, right? So I pull out my phone, and as I'm crossing the street with the group, I turn around and I take 2 shots, 2 photographs of this building. And I'll go ahead and show you the picture. But anyway, I take 2 shots. And then I continue with the group. And we make our way into this alley. And the alley stink, there's got a lot of homeless here in Vancouver. And so the place smells like piss. And as we make our way into this alley, dark alley, she stops us and she starts telling us the actual history of that area and how there was this huge fire that broke out, kind of like Lahaina, and it burnt all the buildings down. Now, all the people that could get out got out and they jumped into the ocean, because that was like everything else went up like a bonfire, just killed a lot of people. And she was telling us a story about how this one woman tried to save her and her child by jumping into a well. And as they were down in the well, thinking they were safe in that water and away from all that heat, what they experienced was something 100 times worse. So as the fire was burning in the town, the oxygen from the well was slowly being replaced with the burnt up, charred ash and wood from the town. And the woman and the child ended up asphyxiating at the base of that well because all the oxygen had been sucked out and all the smoke and everything had made its way in. Well, as soon as she finishes telling the story about the town going up in a blaze, all of a sudden my chest starts to clear. The pressure on my throat is released, and I'm fine. My wife listens to the story, I listen to the story, and we're kind of taken aback because what I'd experienced before she even told us this story, before I even knew the history, what I had experienced was being asphyxiated by smoke inhalation. So I was spiritually feeling being choked out by the fumes and the smoke of the town burning. And after she told that story, I realized that I didn't have to ask her anything anymore because she had already explained what happened there, and I already accepted it as the idea that I had experienced the same thing, right? So I just chalked it up to a great experience. I thought it was awesome that I was sensitive enough to accept this energy, right? And to process it in my way. The panic, the fear of not being able to breathe because you're choking, right? Choking on some non-existent smoke, But then, it was within a matter of, minutes, right? I want to say about 10 minutes from coming down that walkway where that building was. So what she said was, this is the trippy part. What she'd explained is, the entire town had gone up in flames. And the original town had extended from down the road all the way up until just past that road that we were walking down when I felt the tightening and the hard to breathe sensation in my chest. That whole place had all burnt down. So after, when they started to rebuild the city, they decided to use cement and bricks so that it wouldn't go up like a tinderbox like it did previously. That's something important too, right? The history of having a dry area, just being engulfed by flames and taking out the entire town and killing all those people. It should have been something that that people should know, that there's a high risk due to fire. Yeah, fire hazard. Buildings close together, made out of wood, dry. These conditions are perfect for the caña, for an entire burn down. And so it reminds me of Lahaina, right? It reminds me of Lahaina. And this is just an off to the side. Lahaina burnt down because, well, first of all, Lahaina, right? The harsh sun. I should have told you right away that that area is going to get hot. And it's in Ewa, right, of Maui. And even our Ewa gets really, really hot, you know? And we get grass fires and all kinds of stuff during the hot seasons because it gets too dry, right? And then the sun will just spark things up and just burn it down. So that information should have been enough to be like, well, you know what? Maybe not put houses made of sticks, matchsticks inside this area, but nope. With the sun coming up. Yeah, and just to go even further, I mean, I don't like to discuss politics and whatnot, but I know just recently we had this murder, right, on this campus where this guy Charlie Kirk had been killed, shot and killed. You know, this is currently one of the big things that's happening in the United States. You know, regardless of his perspective and what he tried to defend, you know, and how he tried to defend it using his free speech, right? His ability to say it, like, no, this is what I believe, and it's fine. Everybody has their own beliefs. Like, people that come to my channel, you know, a lot of them are like, well, I expect certain things from a ghost channel, right? And then, you know, they're getting these Mo'olelo Mondays that sometimes have a ghost story in between. But the reality is, you know, you're expecting one thing from my channel, but the reality is, that's not what I'm offering. I try to accommodate when it comes to paranormal activity. You know, that's one of the driving forces behind my Real Paranormal show. And if you guys haven't seen the Real Paranormal show, you guys should really check that out if you guys want to see ghost stories, because they're real stories by real people from real places. And this is inside the business district and even the historical district of Honolulu. So you guys want to see those actual ghost stories, then by all means, check it out, right? It's there for you. But anyway, getting back to this Charlie Kirk guy, you know, he had this moment where he was discussing the burning down of Lahaina, and he chalked it up to Hawaiians being pagans, paganistic, and that's the reason why it burnt down, was because Hawaiians were pagans. It's ridiculous. It's ridiculous to say something as such. Hawaiians are pagans. Now, if you're not going to take the time to learn someone or to get to know someone, then of course your expectations are not going to meet reality, right? If you're not going to get to understand the culture of a people, then your ignorance is going to unfortunately show, especially when you're being filmed, you know, because that stuff stays on the internet forever. You know, you know, talk smack about a certain thing, and later on you're going to be proven wrong and stuff like that. And it really doesn't matter anyway, because I mean, us as Hawaiians, like, we're a huge minority in the world, so why does it really even matter? And I think the only reason why we do matter is because of back in the 1940s, right? Well, that's what they said. We really mattered as a port, right? Military operations and stuff like that. It got really important because of the bombing of Pearl Harbor. But before that, it was all business. And that place that burned down was a business area. And it had nothing to do with Hawaiians being there, because a lot of the businesses that I seen when we went were run by Haules. Go figure. Then I understand that there were some houses of the locals and whatnot that were affected by the fires, and lots of them, but I'm just saying the major part of Lahaina that burnt down the business area. And I already talked about in another video, if you haven't seen it, that the paganistic ways of the Hawaiians are non-existent because of the terms, the terminology in Hawaiian. It's hard to understand because, like I said, nobody really wants to learn, But we do have a term. We do have a term for God. Akua. The term is Akua, but the term Akua also means spirit. It also means a person who had passed away, like a family member. So seeing a family member or seeing a spirit is also considered an akua. And so when you have a group of people who are natural as Hawaiians, and who respect their elders and who still treat the earth as if it's alive and breathing like a person, because we do. Yes, Papa is where we came from. It's in the Bible. If you want to get technical, people were gathered by the clay of the earth, and the life, or the ha, or the grace of God was blown within the lungs of man, which is how it animated it, which all equates to the air, the earth, and the waters of this planet coming together to create life, single-celled organisms, where they evolved eventually into what we are today. And so when people call Hawaiians pagans, it's only because they didn't understand the terminology. The terminology of Akua cannot be equated to one word in English, so there are many explanations or many meanings behind definitions behind the word Akua. And so we pray to Akua. Sometimes it's not Akua Hemelele. Sometimes it's our ancestors, that we are descended from. Our ancestors are the ones that we're talking to, whether it be immediate family like mom, dad, right? Mom, I'm going to my interview. If she passed away, if your mother passed away, I'm going to my interview. Please be there with me so that I can feel peace and I can do the good job with my, you're praying to Akua. Does that make you a pagan? Asking help from your parent who had passed away into the other world to come and be with you during that hard time of hardship. There's nothing wrong with that. It's not considered paganistic because you're praying to a parent. That's just like Aumakua for us Hawaiians. We pray to our Aumakua because they were specialized in something, right? Like if you're going to cook something, you pray to the Akua of, the ancestor that could make really good food, because you don't want to mess it up. You don't want your friends coming over to think you can't cook. But, I equate it to the Christians and having their saints, right? If aliens came down today and saw Christians praying to a saint, praying to Mary, praying to, whoever, St. Carlo, and then the aliens would think, wow, these people believe in multiple gods, so they must be pagans, right? But that wouldn't be true. If the aliens took their time to understand our culture and realize that we have one true God, but we are sending our prayers up through the saints to talk to God. That's exactly the same thing that was happening back in the day, and I don't understand why they couldn't understand that back in the day. But apparently, that's why Lahaina burned down, was because of us being pagans. Crazy. So I know I went off track for that for a little while, but it just kind of irks me that this guy had so many terrible things to say about other people. Things that he didn't understand, things that he didn't know. He just blankly took whatever he viewed, and he just demonized it, right? Just made it sound evil. Well, anyway, getting back to my story about about Gastown burning down, right? It's just the conditions were right, just like Lahaina for the burning. And after I'd experienced that experience with the tightening of the chest, the pressing in the throat, it had gone away after the tour guide had mentioned the story of how Gastown burned down. Anyway, we continued our tour deeper into the city, and of course, it was still the same thing. And each story had built up to this and culminated into this story about this woman who was giving the tour, her demise, which I thought was pretty cool. Like, she incorporated her her tour. The whole tour was built and told in a way that it explained how her character, ended up dying. And I thought that was actually pretty cool, you know. So we thanked her, we applauded her, we gave her some tip because she did a fantastic job, and I ended up leaving without asking her about any actual haunted areas, because at the end of the tour, she snapped out of her persona, and she started talking like how she normally talks, and it was just amazing. Just, she was so good. But I remember walking back to our hotel, and we stayed here the previous time too, here at the Fairmont. But I remember coming back to the room with some dinner. We sat down, and the girls are, nibbling, and we were talking about the tour. And even though it wasn't a ghost tour, right, we're expecting to hear ghost stories. It was still a lot of fun. It was very entertaining. It was very educational, and it was very awesome that I had experienced what I experienced on the walk, and it was clarified through the means of her stories. And I was just like, that is really cool. And so after we finished eating, I remember taking out my phone, and I says, "Oh, you know what? I took those shots of the building." I said, "I'm gonna check out the photograph and see if there's anything weird going on in my." Because sometimes I'll do that. It's not often that I actually catch some physical evidence of something, in the background or moving around in my cameras. Usually, I normally pick up audio stuff talking to me. But it was funny because I'm looking through these photos and I see something really strange, and a reflection in the building that I'm taking a picture of. And I'm looking at it, and I was like, hey, that's kind of weird. I don't see this particular thing in the previous shot. Because I remember I took 2 pictures inside the crosswalk as I'm crossing the street. I turned around and I snapped 2 shots, 2 photos. And so I decided, you know what? I zoom in. I'm going back and forth between the 2 pictures, and I realize that inside the window of the building, and this building is it looks condemned, okay? Because, like, there ain't nobody going in and out of this building. There are smaller shops around the front of the facade where I actually took the picture, where you could actually lease it out, like rent a space. But I mean, like, it's all like dark and dingy. It doesn't look like the most appealing place to rent. But as I'm looking at these windows inside these darkened out areas, I see this small spot, okay, and there's just looks like a smudge or a smear. And I zoom in really, really close to the picture, and I see what to me looks like a face. So I look back at the second picture that I took. There's nothing in there. The first picture, I go back, I look, I zoom in, and I'm like, yeah, this thing doesn't translate into the other picture. The other picture, it's gone, and then this picture, it's like here. And then as I zoom in, there's this face on top of the window. So I'm looking, and it's like, wow, this is a really angry looking person. It's like eyebrows, the mouth, everything's kind of like very, very upset. Has this very, very angry look to it. And the eyes are like just orbs, just these white orbs. Now, pareidolia, yeah, okay, fine. There's just pareidolia that happens, right, when the mind creates faces where they aren't, right? You see like leaves, you see clouds, you see shapes that are reminiscent kind of reminiscent of actual faces, right? But anyway, I'm looking back and forth at these pictures, and of course, like I said, I'll let you see the picture to review it for yourself. And I see this face, and it kind of has this weird shape above it, right? And the more and more I look at it, I'm like, wait a minute, this is like, you can see the hair, like hair on the side of the head of the face, and you can see the shape on the top that kind of cuts off the forehead. I'm like, wait a minute, this kind of looks like a hat, and this looks like hair. And so I started looking up pictures of people and how they dressed back in that era, and I find these old-timey pictures of women that wore these really strange hats, and they wouldn't wear them on top of their head. They would kind of lean them forward so it crosses over their forehead, and their hair. They would stylize their hair in a particular way. And it tripped me out because that same style of hat and the way they dress themselves in their hairstyles, it matched up with the way this smudge, this random thing that was there and then wasn't, looked. It matched up. And so that kind of like, whoa, kind of blew me away. So I consider that a piece of visual evidence for an actual entity that I caught in the reflection of this empty building, this window. So like I said, I'll show the photograph. You guys can take a look for yourself. But I expected to go on a ghost tour and hear about the ghosts of this gas town. But in reality, I got this historical tour led by a ghost from the 1800s. But also not expecting to catch evidence of a spirit as well as a physical experience through being, choked up. Yeah, because it really felt like my lungs were filling with smoke. Really felt like my throat was seizing due to the fact that I was inhaling too much of that stuff. So it was really, really interesting, really, really cool. And I hope that I can continue having this mindset, and I hope this is the kind of thing that pops up into my children's heads too, as they grow. That even though something is not meeting their expectations, at least they can respect the reality, right? Yeah, in every single aspect of your life, if you can just be mature and receive what it is that you are experiencing as a constant positive, as a constant way of growing in your life, rather than thinking of it's like, wow, this makes me uncomfortable, or wow, I don't have TV or my phone, so I'm bored. Wow, I don't want to be here because this person is making me uncomfortable because I used to like them and now they're married to somebody else. Some kind of random drama. Just, you're there for a reason. Yeah. Everyone is put where they're put because whatever they did prior to where they were put them there. Basically everybody puts themselves into their own situation, right? Lahaina burned down. Why? Because the buildings were made out of wood, and they built them in a place called Lahaina, harsh sun. Don't light a match if you're living in a box of tinder, right? And to an even greater extent with that Charlie Kirk, man, he just constantly spoke ill of many, many people, rather than just letting it chill. Like, who cares? Who cares? But apparently he had something he needed to say, which is good. But because he kept talking about so much hateful things, and he was always about, going against people and saying things like his beliefs were better or stronger than others. He promoted that kind of hate speech. And Just like he said, oh, Lahaina burned down because Hawaiians are pagans. You know, his end came because of who he was too. I mean, you don't just go out and just find an innocent person and just do bad to them. Well, I mean, some people do, but when you are constantly sticking your tongue out at somebody you don't know every single day, constantly doing something mean to someone deliberately, you can get retaliated upon, right? Sometimes people act like animals, especially when you're acting like an animal with the way you behave and whatnot, right? You're expecting to educate somebody with what you think you know and you're the expert on, which he was not the expert on all these things. That was his expectations, right? And he was bringing knowledge to the masses, when in actuality he was just causing divisiveness and ignorance, spreading ignorance. The reality is, when you treat somebody like kukai, like shit, you're gonna get shit on. The shit is gonna whip back around and hit you right in the eyeballs and give you that pink eye. Sun is nice and high, still got that orange glow. I'm gonna end this Mo'olelo Monday here. I know it's been kind of sparse for the past while, but it's because we've been, as a family, we've been doing a lot of things together, and to me, this is moments spent with my children and my wife that I will never be able to get back if I don't do now. So I appreciate you guys being patient with the content that comes out, but I'm going to be honest, this content is a lot more than what's been happening over the past couple of years. So expectations versus reality. This is the movement of my channel, and I understand, like, some people are leaving the channel, which is fine. I never ever asked anybody to subscribe, like, and share and comment below. I'm not like that. If you guys are enjoying the content, then stick around. You know, if you don't like the content, it's fine, move on, right? Unsubscribe, leave a downvote, it's fine. It doesn't affect me in the way some people are going to think it affects me, because I'm creating something that I feel should be out there. And it doesn't matter what the views are. What doesn't matter to me what the outcome of the thumbs up and thumbs down is. That kind of stuff is just, it's more made for you than it is for me, because I will not be changing my content on YouTube because this is about me, right? YouTube is made for you to create something, your own information, basically your own channel, for the content that you want, and this is what I want. So if you enjoy it, stick around. If you don't, then aloha, ahui ho, right? Malama pono. But I'm not going to keep people against their will here to watch something that they're not interested in. And yeah, I guess at the end of this video, I'll go ahead and put my my time lapse up so you can see the sun rising. But yeah, if you guys have any stories about being out here in Canada and you guys experienced anything weird, then you can comment below. That's cool. Have a conversation with the rest of this small community, my small big community. Yeah. But yeah, I guess I'll just close it there. I don't really have any other ghost tales to talk about when it comes to Canada. I've only been here a couple times, so I was just taken aback by that ghost tour that we went on last time when we caught the picture of that face and whatnot. It was really very, very interesting. But yeah, I guess I'll go ahead and play that there sunrise, the time-lapse sunrise. Maybe I'll wait for the sun to go a little bit higher and then I'll put it into the recording. But other than that, I just want to say thank you for stopping by for this Mo'olelo Monday. I hope you guys are doing well, and thank you again from the bottom of my heart. I love you. Malama pono. Ahui ho.